Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the sessions on data by Data in Talk. And we have been going through the different topics on data, aligned with the CDMP and the DAMA book of reference. Today, in today's chapter, what we're going to do is we're going to take another interesting topic, which is on data quality. Now, as part of that, what we're going to do is we'll try to look into the different components of data quality. We'll also try to see why data quality is very much important as part of the overall data management framework and what kind of journeys that organization goes through as part of the data quality. Now, just to start with, if you see, the data quality is one of the very important component as part of the entire DAMA wheel. And if you take effective data management, which also includes a lot of complex processes, interrelated processes. So these kind of processes are all aligned with your strategic goal, the overall strategic goal that you want to achieve. Now, as part of the data management layer, if you know, we have seen about how we want to start designing the data for the different applications, how we want to store it, how we want to access it, and also security plays a very important role. Now, the value of the data is all the ultimate objective that we want to know, right? So one example, if the data that you are using is something not of use, then something it is not is going to be any kind of these processes, any kind of investments that you're doing is not going to be effective. In fact, the whole aspect about data is how trustworthy the data is, how reliable is this data. Now, all of these factors, there is one common, underlying principle or one of the common string that ties up all of them, which is primarily your data quality, which is, in case which is being used in very siloed term, but a lot of times it just plays a very important role, so as compared of the overall aspect, data quality will start making a complete sense with respect to what kind of the benefits that organizations will start required to start having. Now, quality of data, if you ask, it's one of the other aspect, or it tries to give you some additional information about your data from a quality perspective. And if you see data quality, anything that gives you additional information about your data, which we have seen in the previous sessions, is more on metadata management, right? So metadata is something that gives you another additional quality, and that's the reason if you see metadata data quality is normally always said that even before you start with a data quality program, metadata management has to be something that has to be established. Now, a lot of these data principles or the decisions that you take ultimately also applies with respect to the data quality aspects, how the data quality is getting improved, data quality is, getting affected. A very simple example could be, like when you're filling the application form for a new account opening, if you don't validate the email IDs or if you don't validate the date of birth, you just simply keep on collecting it, then it's a process which has been defined, which is data collection, but then data quality has to be part of that entire process as well. And data quality is something, if you'll see, will be something which will be continuous throughout your entire life cycle also, right? So data quality is, in very simple terms, is something that is whether if it is meeting your business requirements, so in simple terms, if you can see the difference between your expectations and what is actually the reality. In that terms, you can say that it is data quality. And one of the important aspect about data quality, of understanding the data quality, is also trying to understand the different aspects about the data, which normally you will try to get it from your metadata management, right? Where you start getting questions answered about the underlying data. Now, the role of data quality has also evolved over the years, right? Now, one of the key important aspects is managing the data as part of the data life cycle. How you're setting up standards, how you're building data quality into the overall processes across each of these steps. And normally you try to identify a team, a dedicated team who can start looking, because there would be so many different processes, there would be so many different aspects, nitty-gritties that you will have to start looking into. So data quality program team would be primarily responsible in engaging the businesses, the technical professionals, how they can start driving this entire initiative, and at the same time applying these data quality management principles and techniques. So they would be involved in all the different projects which are there in the organization, right from the new initiatives which the organization might be going through, as well as the existing processes and existing initiatives which might have already been established. So data quality program as a whole, you'll start seeing that, well, it's not only about you define what are your key aspects or the dimensions, at the same time start working on them and try to resolve them. Now, some of them is also not about with respect to data. A lot of these time would be more on improving the processes, a lot on ways, which ultimately improves data quality. Understanding the cultural aspects. Sometimes knowledge is one of the key reasons that you start seeing the data quality, and that knowledge gap, once you start upskilling people, training people, you will start seeing that ultimately data quality starts increasing. So data quality in very simple term, you can consider it's not like a project. It's a continuous program as a whole. It has to be part of each and every aspect, right? From if you see when you take any product that is getting developed, then data quality is, imbibed in each of these steps, right? From quality of these raw materials aspects, the quality of the processes which are involved in manufacturing the product, and then you have similar QA. So the end-to-end life cycle, you see data quality is being, or the quality of the product is being improved. That's the reason data products, when we start speaking about data products, where we have this now the mindset of, the data is like a product and it has to be following the similar product life cycle, you are able to see that data quality is now part of each and every of these processes. Now, in very simple terms, if you see data quality, it's more about the planning, implementation, and the control, the activities that are involved with respect to applying these data quality management techniques, so that it's ensured that the data that you have is fit for consumption and fit for purpose, right? Some of the few goals that you will be able to see with respect to data quality would be how you can develop a governed approach so that you can start making data fit for purpose for the organizations. At the same time, the business teams, the consumers who have requested for the data or going to be using the data, it is meeting their purpose. Yeah, at the same time, how you can start defining standards, requirements, and the different specifications of the data, and how you can start putting these quality controls as part of the overall data lifecycle. How you can also start defining and implementing some of the processes so that you can start measuring, monitoring, and reporting the data quality levels across different data quality dimensions that you have. How you can also start identifying, advocating for opportunities so that you can start improving the overall quality of the data through different process and system improvements aspects. So different of these goals as you defined, and some organizations have different goals that they want to achieve, but you start seeing that they start aligning them to the overall principle. Now, when it comes to the business drivers, what are some of these business drivers? The overall, one of the key business driver, as you will be able to see, is that I want to start increasing my overall data value. The valuation of the data is something that I want to start increasing. That's the first and foremost thing that I want to do. At the same time, I want to start reducing the risk which might be associated with data quality. It could be reputational risk. It could be the risk with respect to the reporting risk as well. How you can start improving the operational and organizational efficiency and productivity aspect. So that's a very important aspect as well. And how you can start protecting the organization's reputation overall, right? So organizations that want to get value out of their data, sometimes they will recognize that the high data quality is more valuable than your low data quality or poor data quality. It can, as it will start damaging the organization's reputation, there could be fines associated, there could be revenues that might be lost, you might be losing customers, and there could be negative media exposures as well. Now, regulatory requirements often might require or demand a very high data quality. There could be also different types of costs that would be associated. So, there could be costs associated, for example, in case you want to invoice, you're not able to invoice the customers correctly. There could be an increase with respect to customer complaints, customer service calls, and you're not able to achieve them because customers will now start calling you for any of these data quality issues. There could be revenue loss because you might be losing out with a lot of business opportunities. There would be also a lot of delays with respect to the integrations, might be issues that might be coming up in case if you're going with mergers and acquisitions as with some other organizations. It might be also increasing a lot of these fraud use cases, or because the data is not being correctly captured. There could be lots of bad business decisions as well. that would be there. And similarly, you will see that a lot of business losses will start coming in as a whole as well. Now, there are certain kind of data quality management principles, as you can see, that are aligned with respect to the data quality programs. Now, first of the key principle is criticality. Now, the data quality program that you have should focus on the most critical data aspects, which are because now if you see in an organization which have close to around 100,000 of, data elements, all of this data is not immediately important or not critical in the short term. Maybe you can define them into high critical, medium critical, and low critical. Now, based on this, once you identify the priorities of improvement, so the critical data is firstly highly prioritized and you start working on them because it takes quite amount of efforts when creating data quality rules and defining and then measuring them. Then as part of the overall life cycle management, so the data quality also has to be managed across the entire life cycle, right from the point where the data has been created or procured through the entire last process till the disposal or deletion. Now, if you can see how the data is moving between different systems, as part of the data life cycle, each and every step plays a very important role as part of the life cycle management. Then prevention, how you can start preventing any kind of a data errors or any kind of an issues that you might be associated with respect to usability of the data. It is not only associated with simply correcting some of these records, how you can start preventing some of these issues from happening. Then also the focus should be on how you can start doing the root cause remediations, how you can start removing the causes, the root cause of the issues rather than, as you can see, the data would be now moving from multiple systems. Now, rather than fixing the issues at the reporting layer, which is the last layer or the consumption layer, if you are able to, improve the quality right at the individual layer from the source itself, where the root issue is getting issues is coming, then a lot of the subsequent steps you might have to, you can start removing the data quality checks once you see that. So data quality checks are already done. Then from a governance perspective, a lot of the data governance activities that you do must start supporting the development of high data quality and data quality program activities. In fact, if you see data quality, that's the reason it's been aligned as part of the overall data governance framework and the data governance teams, aligned activities. Then standards driven. So all the stakeholders which are associated in the data life cycle have data quality requirements, right? So, so if you see the data quality requirements should be defined in the form of some measurable standards rather than just keeping it very, very generic. So there should be some kind of measurable standards and expectations that could be set against which the data quality should be measured. Then with respect to objective management, measurement and transparency, it is also about, how the data quality measurements should be shared with the different stakeholders, since, these data quality levels has to be measured with a specific consistency and a specific objectivity in mind. These processes that you're defining has to be start embedded through all the different business processes, so even the business owners and the business teams should start enforcing the data quality as per data quality standards. Then the system owners must also systematically enforce these data quality requirements in place, so that it can start helping them as part of this initiative. You should also have certain defined level of SLAs in place, with respect to data quality reporting and issue management, how it should be incorporated as part of your SLAs in place. So if you can see the entire life cycle of data quality, there are different phases as part of the overall life cycle. So one of the key important phase as part of the overall life cycle is the planning phase. When you start seeing that, it starts from the planning phase itself, where we start planning out the activities, right? Then you see that how we can start designing the data quality rules, how we can start enabling the usage of data quality aspects, right? Then creating and obtaining some of the measures and identification that will help you in start aligning to these requirements, right? So that's part of the creating and obtaining. Then you have the storage and maintenance processes where you can start monitoring the quality of the data within the systems and processes you can start doing. Then you start using this. So there is a feedback loop where you start using these and start identifying the priorities which are important. Then you start enhance, because it is something that is not a one-time activity. You start seeing that it will keep on going on. So it's a kind of a process as a whole that will start seeing that it will keep on happening as we go. And then finally, you see that it's not an end. There is no end to this, and you will see that it would be going through these different types of enhancements, continuous enhancements as a whole. We will start seeing that these kind of things will start happening as we start going in. So the overall principles, if you see, that you'll be able to identify could be written in these kind of aspects, right? So you have the criticality principle, you have the entire prevention principle, you have the life cycle management, the root cause remediation principle, the governance principle, right? And what are the corresponding data quality management activities that are associated to these principles? Now, there are different aspects with respect to data quality. So first and foremost thing, if you see data quality, as we have seen, is now it's like another interesting characteristic, which tells you which help you to understand the underlying data. Now, that is one of the key aspects that is in data quality. And it also tells you the degree at which, you set up your expectations and you try to meet that entire expectation, whether the data that you have is fit for purpose, whether the data that you want is usable and meet your business requirements. Now, data quality dimensions is one way of measuring the characteristic of your data. Now, how do you say data quality or measure it? Because data quality is very generic term. Data quality for me, like for example, give this example. Let's say if you want to go and buy apples from the market, and when you go and ask the persons who are buying, some person will say that the color of the apple is important for them. Some will say the size of the apple is important for them. The other person might say that no, these are not important. The brand of the apple is important for me, or the freshness of the apple. So these are the different dimensions in which you are trying to gauge the quality of that apple. But if you see from data perspective, like that's the reason dimension will help you to understand what are the different dimensions or the measures across which the data quality could be measured, the data would be measured with respect to. Now, if you see there are different types of measures it could be with respect to data quality, but different frameworks also exist. If you see the Strong Wang framework in 1996, which was focusing more on data consumers' perceptions of data. So they gave 15 dimensions across 4 different categories. So primarily it was 4 categories were intrinsic data quality, contextual data quality, representational data quality, and accessibility data quality. Under the intrinsic data quality, they had accuracy, objectivity, believability, and reputation. Under contextual data quality, they have value-added relevancy, timeliness, and completeness, an appropriate amount of data. Across representational data quality, they have interoperability, ease of understanding, representational consistency, and concise representation. Across accessibility data quality, they had accessibility and access security. Similarly, you also had in 1996, Thomas Redmond, they formulated a set of data quality dimensions. So they defined data quality as a representation triple, which primarily associated with 3 different dimensions. So it includes the dimension of representation, where it defines that it would be having a set of rules how you can start recording the data items. There are different types of general categories with respect to data models, data values, and representation, where he describes different types of different, across 2 dozen of dimensions that they had. So across the data model that they had, the content, the level of detail, composition, consistency, and reaction to change. From data values perspective, we had dimensions represented. From representation perspective, we had different dimension represented. Right. Then similarly, Larry English, primarily in 1999, in improving data warehouse and business information quality, represented a comprehensive set of dimensions. So they were divided into 2 broad categories: inherent and pragmatic characteristics. So pragmatic characteristics were more associated with the representation and the dynamic and the value aspects. And then the pragmatic characteristics, the inherent characteristics, which on the other hand was more with respect to inherent to the data, what are some of the characteristics. And 2009, DAMA UK produced a white paper that it described 6 core dimensions, completeness, uniqueness, timeliness, validity, accuracy, and consistency, to make it very simple and short. And what it also listed in 2017, where some of the common concepts were fully more defined and, made more, elaborated. So everyone who is reading through it would be able to understand. Now, about dimensions is these are a means to the end. So you can start thinking that, what it means for the data to be high quality, while we see that, so there might not be a single agreed set of data quality dimensions, but these formulations that you normally have and these reference dimensions that you can look into will start giving you some kind of a associated aspect of how you can start associating the data quality with each. One of the important aspect with respect to data quality is also how you can start looking into the aspect of moving into the data. So if you can see, there is a mapping that maps these data quality across the context to which you would be able to see the data quality. So this diagram basically helps you to shows the relationship between the data quality dimensions with the different types of concepts that it could be associated with. So across the dimensions of accuracy, completeness, consistency, currency, data integrity, precision, privacy, reasonableness, timeliness, uniqueness, validity, and accessibility. As you can see, you can start mapping them across the different types of concepts. Now, when it comes to data quality, or if you take quality of any product, normally we always try to associate with some of the quality standards. Like, for example, you have a CMMI standard, you have an ISI standard, different types of these standards. When you start associating, it gives you some relevance of relevancy, and trust that you can start using. Now, similarly, the quality standard is ISO 8000, which is the international standard, and it has been developed so that you can start, using it as a reference for exchanging complex data and complex data quality related aspects. So what ISO 8000 asserts is it will give you the ability to create, collect, store, maintain, transfer, process, and present the data so that you can start supporting it for business processes in a more timely and cost-effective manner. And it might also require you to start understanding the overall characteristics of the data that might be useful for determining the quality of the data and the ability to start measuring, managing, and reporting the data quality. Now, ISO 8000 defines certain characteristics that can be tested by the organization so that you start achieving the overall objectivity with respect to determining the conformance to the ISO 8000 standard. Now, the first published report of 8000, who focused more on the syntax, semantic encoding, and conformance of the data specification with respect to master data as a whole. But one of the key aspects of master data is also data quality. Before you go with your master data management programs, data quality is something that you go ahead with. So there are multiple subsections of the standard with 8,100 speaking on the introduction, 120 speaking on provenance, 130 speaking on the accuracy, and 140 speaking on the completeness. ISO also defines data quality as a kind of a portable data that starts meeting some of the stated data requirements, right? Now, data quality standard is related. So you can start seeing that, ISO defines that data quality is a more of a portable data that should meet the stated requirements. The data quality standard is related to the overall ISO's overall work on data portability and preservation. Now, data is considered portable if you start seeing that it can be separated from that overall application or the system in which it is being hosted. Now, data that can only be used or read using a specific license software application would be subject to the terms of the overall software license. Now, the organization might not be able to use this data it created unless that data can be detached from the overall software that was used to create it. Now, so to meet some of the requirements as part of the ISO 8000, so there is an associated standard which is ISO 22749, which is the standard that you use for defining and exchanging the master data. So 22749 defines also how the data requirement standard should be constructed. It provides examples on in XMLs and define the formats in which the portability of the data is being used. In fact, ISO 22749 creates a lot of portable data. It starts labeling the data using an ISO 22749, 745 compliant open technical dictionary, such as you have the ECC MA open technical dictionary as well. Now, the whole intention of ISO 8000 is that it can start helping the organizations define what is and what is not the overall good quality of data. How you can start enabling them to ask for better quality data using some of the standard definitions and standard contexts. In fact, if you see 8000 part 61, which is more under the information and data quality management process, it has a reference model in place which defines the overall structure and organization of the data quality management, including your data quality planning, control, assurance, and the improvement aspects. Now, there are different types of rules that you will be seeing as part of the overall aspects. So these rules that you can see, these are the business rules that basically shows you how the business should operate internally, in case it has to be successful and compliant with the overall data quality standards. Now, the data quality business rules will try to describe how the data should exist in order so that it could be useful and usable within the organization. A business rule that, for example, that states that all the state field codes should be compliant with some of the international state abbreviations is one kind of a rule. Now, one is like the definitional conformance. That is one of a rule type that says that the same understanding of the definition should be implemented and used across all the processes in the organization. Then you see the value presence and record completeness, which is more with respect to the rules defining the conditions under which missing values are more acceptable or unacceptable. Then you have the format compliance. So one or more of these patterns will specify the values that are assigned to the overall data element. Like, for example, the standards that are useful for formatting the telephone numbers. Then you also have the value domain membership. So it will specify that the data element assigned value is included in those of the defined value domains, with respect to specific characteristics of the values that you have. Range conformance within the specific range or time range. Mapping conformance should be representing the mapping that it has with the reference, other lookup tables and the reference values. Consistency should be present with respect to values should be consistently present. Accuracy verification, the value that is present should be accurate as part of the expectation. Uniqueness verification, the values that is present should be unique in nature. Then you have the timeliness validation that the characteristics associated should be accessible and available within a specified time, reasonable time. And some of these rules that you can see, some of the rules that you will also see will be also involve aggregating some of the functions. Like some of the examples of aggregation checks will include validating the reasonableness of the number of records that you have, validating the reasonableness of the average number amount that is being calculated from the set of transactions, validating the expected variance in the count of the transactions over the specified time frame, right? Different of these aggregation checks might be involved. Now, what are some of the data quality common challenges that data quality, normally faces? So one is the issues with respect to the lack of leadership. So one of the key issues that you can see with respect to lack of leadership is like the lack of awareness on the part of leadership. People, they are not associated what their role is in the overall, in the overall governance structure, lack of business governance, or let's say lack of leadership and justification, difficulty trying to explain the justification that is required for improvement, inappropriate or ineffective instruments that might be required to measure the value, right? Then there could be issues with respect to the data entry processes, right? Which I was mentioning, the data entry interface issues might be there. There might be poorly designed data entry interfaces that might be contributing to data quality issues as a whole. The interface might not have proper edits or controls so that it can start preventing incorrect data from being put into the overall system data processors. At the same time, I might be skipping a lot of non-mandatory fields and all, right? Then listing the entry placement. So the simple features or the data entry interfaces that you might be having, such as the order of values within the drop-down list, and all of it that you can have, can start contributing a lot of data entry issues. I can have field overloading as well, where I can start reusing the fields over a period of time for these different business processes rather than making the changes to the data model and the user interface as a whole. At the same time, this practice that we might be having might be resulting in a lot of inconsistent and confusing population of the fields. Then training issues might be having, so a lack of process knowledge that we might be having. So we might have to start training the people so that they are aware of these kind of issues, right? And then there could be changes in a lot of these business processes because of which the issues might start coming in over a period of time. There could be inconsistent business process executions also that might be happening. There could be issues with respect to the data processing functions, So where we are trying to have an incorrect assumptions about overall data sources, the business rules might be old, might be stale, the data structures keeps on changing. At the same time, some of the issues might be with respect to system design, where you're able to failure, you're not able to force referential integrity with respect to checking the duplicate value, orphan records, orphan rows, and all. How you are able, there would be failure with respect to enforcing uniqueness constraints as a whole, right? So uniqueness checks and all you're not able to put in. Coding inaccuracies and gaps could be existing. Data model inaccuracies could be existing. Field overloading can be happening. Similarly, there could be temporal data mismatches also. As a whole, you will be able to see weak master data management principles, data deduplications could be happening. Then there could be issues caused by fixing issues, lack of testing and these kind of challenges might happen. Data profiling, where, you might be using some of the techniques to start discovering the overall, aspects about the data. You want to do some statistical aspects about your data, like count of the data, minimum, maximum values, the length of the data sets, frequency distribution, all these kind of things, yes, that will start giving you the overall profiling about the data. Then how the data quality and data processing aspects. So where you're trying to define and the data quality process. So in the data quality process, what are some of the things that you do as part of the activities? So as you can see, you first define the overall approach, define the high quality data, define the high quality strategy, define the critical data and business rules. You also start prioritizing the data for the overall improvement areas. You access the data and try to recommend some of the improvement areas and then implement the improvement controls in data quality. If you can see from the data quality operations perspective, you start defining the overall approach and start training the team. You start measuring, monitoring, and reporting the data quality. And then you start managing the issues as part of the overall. And then as part of the management aspect, you also try to manage the data quality metadata. So assess the readiness, organizational readiness for data quality. What you try to do is you try to check the overall maturity of the organization with respect to data quality and start measuring and start using this. So as part of it, first thing that you do is try to verify the management commitment overall, because management should be, it's a data is a strategic asset, and you should start seeing that management to be aligned to the overall data quality. You also start seeing the organization's current understanding of the quality of the data. You start identifying what is the actual state of the data, what are the corresponding risks that are associated with respect to data, which is with respect to data creation, data processing, or using it, and what kind of cultural and technical readiness is required from your end. Now, if you see, this is a more of a PDCA kind of a life cycle, which is your plan, do, check, and act, where you first assess the scope, impact, and priority of these issues, try to evaluate data and try to provide alternatives so that you can start addressing them. Then you start doing a lot of these things. You start addressing the business process and technical root causes, and you start planning out for start performing a lot of these activities. Then you start checking and monitoring, about the data quality, how it is being done, and what are some of the key activities that you want. And then you start acting on it, start improving and start working on improvement. So as part of this, you start diagnosing what are the issues which are associated, start formulating the overall options and the remediations improve aspects which are required, and then start resolving the overall issues as a whole. This is part of your entire, the entire corrective actions and things that you do. Now, if you see what are the characteristics for the metrics, they affect data quality metrics, how you can start seeing. So data quality metrics will help you to start measuring and start valuing, right? So one is the measurability. The data quality metric that you will be using should be measurable. Don't say that good, bad, or better. It has to start measuring. Then start having a business relevancy associated that what is the reason why this data quality is improvement is important. Start giving an acceptability criteria. So everyone should be able to understand this and should be able to provide some level of acceptance. Then accountability and stewardship, where the metrics that should be understood and approved by key stakeholders. Then similarly, controllability should be the metric should reflect a kind of a controllable aspect of the business. Let's say if the metric is out of range, it should trigger action so that you can start improving the overall data. In case if there is no way to respond, then probably the metric is not very useful as a whole. Then trending perspective, some of the metrics which might be trending, that start as you can start monitoring the activities within the scope of the SLA, the data sharing agreements, and how you can start demonstrating the effectiveness of the improvement activities. So that is primarily on the trending aspect. Then as part of the statistical process control, what are some of the SPCs or the statistical process control, how you can define method for analyzing the measurements over a period of time. So these measurements will help you to keep a trend aspect about it. Then one of the other aspect is the root cause analysis, the RC aspect, when you start understanding what are the root causes that you will be having with respect to the analysis. Because you, as part of this, you also want to start understanding what could be the root cause effects with respect to what is the problem, what kind of challenges that may be coming up, and then start going ahead into some of the key aspects of it. So the overall implementation guidelines, if you can say, it is not an easy task, having said it is something that is easy to say and rather do. So data quality improvement implementation requires a lot of these steps. The metrics that you defined with checking on the value of the data and the quality of the data plays a very important. What is the operating model? What the IT teams, what the business teams interactions, how the projects are being executed, changes to the business process associated, the funding that is required for remediation and the improvement projects, and then what kind of data quality operations and continuation activities, what kind of a support that you might be required. So all of this, as you keep on doing, it might be something that is important. And if you start seeing, one of the key aspects is the data quality policy, right? So when you define the data quality policy as part of the overall data governance policy, each of these principles, each of these practices is something that you mentioned. And you also mentioned the different types of metrics, like, for example, the ROI, the levels of data quality, the data quality trends that you need to measure, what are the data quality management metrics that you want to capture, what are some of the conformance to the SLAs that you want to define, and the overall rollout plan that you want to have it for the organization. Each of these things, you will start saying this, starts playing a very important role. So this is something that today I wanted to cover on data quality. I hope you have liked the session as well. So this is at a very high level. We have not covered on any solution as a whole because this is from a tool perspective, this is not something that we wanted to cover. We wanted to cover something which is more on a conceptual perspective aligned with the DAMA book of reference. So I will meet again. We will wherein we will continue with our journey on data. So thank you for attending today's session. Yeah, thank you. Bye.